Silver and gold are the most manipulated markets on the planet. And it's good to see, this being brought to light now. So number one, I think all markets are manipulated, just not to the extent that silver and gold are. And one thing we have to also ask ourselves is, was silver and gold manipulated in the 1970s run? And then more recently, from 1999 to 2011, silver was certainly manipulated along the way, especially from 2008 to 2011. And it still rose, went from, $4 or $5 in the early 2000s up to 50 in 2011. So price can still rise in a manipulated market. But more importantly is that all manipulations fail. They all do. You can look at the London gold pool in the 1970s, and the bankers were almost overrun in 2011. Manipulation, although it disgusts me because everyday people get hurt, if you understand it and you know about it, you can use it to your advantage. For example, you can use these ridiculous sell-offs that make no sense whatsoever as opportunities to accumulate. And that's what the big money is doing. I like to say, follow the money. JP Morgan is buying hand over fist. China is buying hand over fist. Central banks around the world are buying hand over fist. They're evil, but they're not stupid. And I consider them to be the smart money. So eventually this is all going to turn around, and eventually the manipulation is going to be to the upside when it suits them. So we can use this to our advantage, as criminal and corrupt as it is.
Let's talk a little bit about this idea that manipulation actually creates opportunity. And right now, of course, we do see that gold and silver move with real rates, but they should be correcting from a much higher vantage point than they're at right now. And one of the things that's presented that to me is an opportunity to get more exposure to physical metals, which just 4 months ago, you pretty much missed the boat. I mean, you would have been paying over $2,000 an ounce for gold, basically, and well over 40 an ounce for silver. And so it does present from a physical metals perspective, but then also from a mining stock perspective, because what happens when you manipulate the price of something? Well, what happens is you distort supply and demand fundamentals. Mm-hmm. And the ironic thing about that is it works until it doesn't, because you get to a point where when you have a silver market where 70% of it comes from industrial use, and the macroeconomic climate of people's distrust for fiat currency is driving retail demand as well at a near or close to record high, what happens when people keep saying, well, the price still isn't that bad? And so it's causing people to continue to chip away at that 30%, which distorts the market in the available market, which ultimately presents a fantastic opportunity for the price to have a significant correction. It's a similar type of setup in uranium as well, obviously different dynamics, but one where the price needs to be astronomically higher, and it presents an interesting opportunity to ride the wave of that.
The use of physical silver in industry is growing, and that is a tailwind for silver. That's a bullish factor. However, it's the investment demand that's going to really cause it to skyrocket. It's the investment demand that's going to see this be an epic bull market. I think it's the last couple months, for the first time in years, investment demand actually superseded or eclipsed industrial demand on a monthly basis. So is this a short-term move, or is it a long-term trend? But that's certainly a very encouraging sign. And there's a lot of smart money that jumps in and buys these dips. And you eventually get to a point where maybe they drive the paper price down, but any drop in the paper price is then offset by a corresponding rise in premiums. So for example, if they drive the price of silver down by $2, well, then the premiums just go up $2 and you're still paying the same price for the physical. And that's what we saw back in the beginning of February during that just absolutely blatant manipulation on the silver squeeze. JP Morgan is acquiring physical metal hand over fist. Why are they doing that? They're going to participate in this bull run when it goes. And I like to think of the manipulation as like every time they manipulate it, it's like taking a beach ball and just pushing it underwater. And the further you push it down, just eventually it's going to poof, pop. And the more you push it down, the higher it's going to go. Perhaps they're allowing the gold price to stay suppressed to allow China to accumulate it hand over fist to offset the eventual loss in value of their treasuries. They own, I think it's over $2 trillion, if I remember correctly, of U.S. treasuries. And, so you say, why would they keep buying these treasuries? Well, perhaps there's an agreement that they'll continue to buy treasuries, keeping yields down in the U.S. while they accumulate gold hand over fist. And then eventually, when the treasury market, blows up, which is going to happen, that's the biggest bubble in the world, is U.S. debt market. Their gold holdings will offset their losses. Yeah, I think it makes total logical sense, and we could even see a point where gold is reintroduced to the monetary system to introduce inflation. Because remember, inflation benefits borrowers and it hurts lenders. So who are the biggest borrowers in the world? U.S. government, and you could even just say governments across the world in general, but specifically the U.S. government. So they've got a vested interest in higher inflation. And one way to get instantly higher inflation would be to revalue the price of gold higher. Now, I don't think they want to do that soon unless they absolutely have to. But, it's certainly a viable possibility if things get bad enough. So like back in 1933, for example, the price of gold was pegged at $20, roughly $20 and some change. And then they revalued it to like $35. So it's a 75% increase in the price of gold. And that coincided with a 75% loss in purchasing power of the US dollar. So inflation wipes away debts. It eats away debts. I mean, it hurts the lender, but it benefits the borrower. And the biggest borrower is the United States government. Let's say they do introduce a new monetary system where currencies around the world are backed by, say, 40% gold. And the price of gold is now revalued. It's pegged at $15,000 an ounce. Well, that would be highly inflationary. It would wipe out a lot of debts. And inflation deflects the blame away from where it belongs. And it takes the blame away from these politicians, the central planners. And it pits people against each other because they don't understand it. So like, what are they going to do? Come out with some kind of new scheme? No one's going to believe anything they say to introduce confidence in their currency. But if they were to say, hey, we're going to back it by gold, that might do it, in Venezuela particularly. And a lot of other countries are headed down that same path. I think there's not only a war on savers, there's a war on like small business owners, because all these policies hurt small businesses and everything. So the ability to go out and start your own small business, aside from maybe an internet business like you and I are doing, trying to build a brick and mortar business that competes with some mega corporation. Like these are all trends that are very troubling. And I see more people just working for big corporations where you're pretty much a slave to your job till you're 60, and maybe you can retire with some dignity down the road. I mean, these are all trends that are in place, and I think they're only going to accelerate, especially, as it seems clear that central bank digital currencies, I'm not super smart on those, but that's coming, where they can track every transaction you make. These are all things that are on the horizon, and they're coming, unfortunately. The mission of Silver Chartist isn't for everyone to go make a bunch of money. That's a means to an end. And, I believe everyone has a calling on their life. Everyone. There's something inside of you that makes you come alive, that you're meant to pursue. And it becomes hard, when you're bogged down with a 50-hour week work job, working for a job you hate. So I want people to have the time freedom to pursue the things that they're called to in life, things of eternal significance. And I think everyone's got that within them. And, if I can help someone along the way a little bit by making smart investments, that's where the real fulfillment and satisfaction comes in. And